Hey, thanks for checking out another episode of Triple Play. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to support those that support us. We want to thank Brookes Bible College. Brookes Bible College is a Christ-centered Bible college here in the St. Louis area. If you are looking to grow in the Lord and get into ministry, or if you're a layperson just wanting to get to know God's Word better, consider taking classes at Brookes Bible College. Their goal is to get you in ministry with as little debt as possible and to give you a great education for the cost. And you'll be equipped to pastor, you'll be equipped to counsel, and you'll be equipped to teach God's Word when you graduate. Guaranteed, promise. And you'll love it. Great professors, great staff and faculty, and just everybody there. You're going to love it if you consider Brookes Bible College. Just a little random fact, but the average church size in America is 60 to 70 people. And if you're graduating from college with $100,000 worth of debt or $75,000 worth of debt, it's going to be very hard to pastor a church that size unless they're independently wealthy. So, consider Brookes Bible College. It's a great alternative. Also, to go right along with that, per se, is the fact that you're a layperson and you want to get better educated. You don't want to spend $75,000 to do that either. So you're going into missions. You can't do missions work if you're carrying around a $50,000, $75,000 worth of college debt either. So those are all reasons to consider Brookes Bible College. We hope you'll consider, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. All right. Well, hey, today's guest is Zip Rzeppa. We're excited that you're here, Zip. And sorry, you didn't get to meet my co-host. He had some air conditioning issues, but we'll get him on here another time. We'll get you back. We've already had a great conversation, and I'm sure you've got a lot of stories. I told you a few of
Sure.
mine.
Sure. Oh, we'll get Scott. We'll get Scott in here. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, you're growing up, you're one of the iconic newscasters of my time. So quite honestly, I couldn't wait when I was a kid to get out of bed and watch you on TV. So I know it's probably weird to you. So, but as a young kid, Zip Rzeppa was big, and watching you do the news every night, hearing what you had to say about the Cardinals and the Blues and the various sports activities around town was the highlight usually of my day as a young kid growing up in St. Louis. So it is really an honor to have you. And I know we're going to get into this, but that you're a man of faith, and that's something that I really really value as well. So
Glad you caught me when I was in St. Louis, not in my minor league days. When I started in the minor leagues, I mean, TV and baseball were a lot alike back in the day. I mean, I got in the 1970s, when there were 3 television stations in each town. There was ABC, CBS, NBC. Fox didn't exist, and there wasn't any cable or anything like that. So you had to work your way up. I started in Fort Wayne, Indiana, doing weekends. I moved to Fort Wayne for a job, the only job I could get in TV. Then I wound up in Saginaw, Michigan. So I was up there for 3 years, freezing my rear end. Then I went to Cincinnati, and the turning point was when I was in Saginaw. I used to travel to big cities because I wanted to work in major league markets. In Saginaw, I was covering things like free throw shooting contests and possum shoots and stuff like that. I wanted to cover the major leagues, so I'd take my tape to major markets, and I'd go in there and I'd say, "Hey, take a look at this. I want to work here." And they'd take a look at my tape and they'd send me home. I was in Philadelphia one time, and I showed the guy my tape. This guy, a big news director. I said, "Oh, this guy's really important. I got an interview with him." And I said, "So what do you think of my tape?" He goes, "What do I think?" He says, "I think, son, if you ever make it to a major market, you will be the ugliest sportscaster in town." I'm going like, oh. So I got my composure back. I said, "Well, what can I do?" He says, "Man, if I were you, I'd be different." I'd say, "Well, what do you mean by different?" And he started giving me examples. He said, "Well, there's Warner Wolf in New York. He uses fast-paced tape. And there's a guy in Washington who's really funny. He's a sportscaster. Everybody loves him. And in LA, this guy who's great conversation with the news anchors. And they do different things. They do stuff." He says, "I would just be different." So I went back to Saginaw. I said, "Well, okay, I'm going to do a lot of things here in Saginaw. I'm not going to lose my job here." So I used to experiment. I used to do crazy stuff. And I threw out what didn't work and I kept what did. And eventually, a guy in Chicago saw my tape. He said, "Man, you're going to make it." He was vice president of NBC News. I said, "I'm going to make it? Really? I'm in Saginaw. I'm starving to death, freezing my butt. I'm going to make it?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, how do you know?" He says, "Because I got 200 tapes of sportscasters from all over the country, and they're all the same. They're great looking, they have great voices, and they read the scores." He said, "Son, you are an original. You are different. You're going to make it." And I said, "Wow." So he took me under his wing, and I landed a job when I was 27 years old in Cincinnati at that time, covering the Big Red Machine, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, all those guys. I was 27 years old, and that was great. So moving up.
That was great.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That would have been like a dream come true. The Big Red Machine is amazing.
Yep. It was last year, the Big Red Machine, 1979. Last year, they made the playoffs. And then the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl in 1981, the first year they made it there. And so that was fun. And then
would that have been Icky?
No, that was 89 was Icky. 81 was Ken Anderson, Pete Johnson, Isaac Curtis, Archie Griffin.
Oh, yeah.
All those guys.
Did you get to know any of the Big Red Machine?
Munoz. Oh, yeah. Johnny Bench was a good guy. So
and Munoz, you mentioned him. Was he?
Anthony Munoz, yeah. And Max Montoya played left guard. They call him the Mexican Connection. Anthony and Max. And they were good. They were really good. Well, Munoz was a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that was fun. So then I moved up further. I went to Boston. And I got a job there as a sportscaster. I was 30 years old. And I thought, wow, things are going good now. This different thing is working. So I get to work my first day at work at Channel 7 in Boston. And I see an old college buddy of mine, a guy named Bill O'Reilly. And I said, "O'Reilly, what are you doing here?" He says, "They just hired me to do the news. What are you doing here?" I said, "They just hired me to do the sports." I said, "Yeah." We hadn't seen each other in 8 years. We stayed in touch because we were working in all these small markets. I was in Fort Wayne and Saginaw. He was in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Pennsylvania. So we'd call each other every year or two and go, "You think we're ever going to make it?" And there we are in Boston, working together, side by side, doing the news and the sports.
I didn't realize wow. That is a name, too. He's one of the biggest, even today, even though he's not on Fox anymore, he's still a big name.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So that's when we became really close friends. We were working the late news, and of course, 11 o'clock news in Boston, the Eastern time zone. And we moved in the same condo complex together, and we were double dating. We were two single guys working till midnight in the news industry and everything else. And then a year later, we both got fired. So it wasn't anything untoward. We didn't do anything wrong, even though we were colorful. The station got sold, and soon after we got hired, and they broomed all the executives that hired us, and all the executives come in and want to hire new people, so they broomed us, and that was it. So Bill and I were on the beach looking for work. I wound up in St. Louis. He wound up in Portland, Oregon, and then we said, "Well, we'll be in these places for a year or two." And he was in Portland for a year or two, and then he started moving back up. I'm here 40 years later in St. Louis, so crazy. So by the time I got here, things were cooking along pretty good.
That's awesome. That's
my TV journey.
Where did you grow up in?
Detroit.
Detroit?
Yep.
Wow.
Raised in Detroit City, the Motor City.
What was that like? I mean, that would have been different back then, too, because it's
1950s, early 60s. Things were pretty good then. The big three automakers were prospering. This was before the foreign cars came in and took over. And, everybody was connected to the auto industry. My dad was a car salesman. He sold cars. And we had a good middle-class life,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Detroit, during that time, that would have really, when you said that, it's immediately what I thought is, man, this is the heyday of Detroit.
That's right. That's right. Things were good. Everybody's doing pretty well. And then I went to Boston University to school. That's where I met O'Reilly. Also met another guy, my classmate named Howard Stern, was with us. Can you imagine Howard Stern and Bill O'Reilly at the same time and going to school? And I'm going to school with these guys. I mean, it's like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize that they went to the same school.
Boston University, yeah. Another guy was Eli Gold, who became the legendary radio voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide for 40 years. Eli was with us, and John Gambling became one of the top disc jockeys in New York, Rambling with Gambling on WOR radio for decades. And so it was an incredible collection of young kids. We were all just trying to make it, studying broadcasting. And against all odds, we did pretty well, and a lot of other guys looked for other jobs. So you never know what's going to happen.
So you obviously fell in love with St. Louis because you're still here, and you had a great career.
40 years later, yep.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, What when you came to St. Louis, what kind of drew you in as you came here? I mean, you're initially thinking a year or two and I'm out of here, but obviously that didn't happen. What did you like about the St. Louis culture, or what grew on you?
Pretty much everything. I was the sportscaster, and the Cardinals in the 80s were very, very good. I came in 84. I missed 82, but I was here for the World Series in 85 and 87. And what a great baseball town. The running Redbirds, Whitey and all the great players and everything. So that was great. And things were going well on TV, and I jumped from Channel 2 to Channel 4 for like the biggest contract any broadcaster ever signed in St. Louis for 5 years, no cut, guaranteed. So I just got to like it and like the town, like the people, and stayed here.
Wow. What was it like? Who did you have some favorite people you liked working with? From either station. Were there some people that really stood out as your colleagues?
Well, I kind of liked everybody. I mean, I worked with Larry Connors and Julius Hunter, who are major news icons, of course. Doug Vaughn and I became great friends. Doug came in from Miami in 1988 when I came to Channel 4, and we were good friends. Doug has a great sense of humor. He's a funny guy, great guy. Trish Brown, the weather girl, the weather lady, who left, went to Lincoln, Nebraska, married a doctor, and got out of the business, had babies, and working for the church there. Trish is great. So many people, a lot of people.
Wow. I was curious because I just remember growing up and watching you, and usually they had you paired with, weather or somebody else, and you guys would be doing some crazy stuff for the commercials to get people to.
I was always doing crazy stuff. Josh, when you look like this, you had to be different.
You had to be different. There you go.
So-
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, about your faith, I mean, how did that kind of intertwine with that? Were you serious about your faith in your younger years, or was that something that kind of became more important to you later on?
Yeah, I grew up in Detroit. I was raised Catholic, so I never really deviated. Always went to church on Sundays, and but I got burned out from the business. I loved being a sportscaster, but I hated the hours. I mean, I was working till midnight. I was a workaholic. I mean, the 10 o'clock show would end at 10:30, but I'd never go home. I'd say, "Oh, we got to watch the other guy's shows. Oh, we got to plan for tomorrow. I got to make the assignments for the other reporters. I got to get the photographers going here for a shoot." Blah 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 blah. It was always midnight before I left work. And after 20 years of that in 5 cities at 6 TV stations, I said, "Look, I love this job, but I can't stand the lifestyle. 5, 6 nights a week. I'm here till midnight. I have no life." So I got out and started a nationally syndicated radio show called the Great American Sports Trivia Show. Short story. It failed after 9 months, and I lost pretty much all the money I ever had left from TV. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do now? What am I going to do?" So I got a call from a priest, and he said, "I want you to help me do some evangelization in inner city parishes." I said, "All right, what does that look like?" So he told me about it. He says, "Well, we want to go into some of these inner city parishes where nobody wants to go, and nobody's Catholic down there. So let's see if we can get them interested in the Catholic Church." I said, "Well, okay." The Holy Spirit said, "Okay, say yes." I don't know why he said yes. I mean, what did I say? Yes? Okay. He paired me up with a guy from Dublin, Ireland. He was a mystic. He'd been miraculously healed of multiple sclerosis in the waters of Lourdes, and he came to this country, and he and I began doing door-to-door evangelization in the most crime-ridden, drug-infested neighborhoods you can ever imagine in St. Louis. They were all African-American neighborhoods. We were 2 little white guys getting out of our car and ringing doorbells. So I'll never forget the way we started. Go to the first house, and we didn't know what to expect. We were like, and so we ring the doorbell, and all these houses had the blinds drawn shut right in the middle of the day because they're all drug havens and people fearing the drug guys and everything. So we ring the doorbell, and the blinds go up a slit, and we read the lips of the guy inside. He goes, "Detectives." Closes the blinds. Never came there. So we go to the next house. We go, okay. No, we ring the doorbell. Blinds go up. We read the lips. Guy goes, "Jehovah's Witnesses." Didn't open the door. We go to the third house. Third house didn't even have a doorbell. So we knock on the door. Blinds go up. Blinds go down. 2 seconds later, the door opens, and this gigantic African-American brother stands there, looks me right in the eye, and he says, "Hey, man, you Zip Rzeppa. You come to put me on the Zippo Awards?"
That's great.
No idea.
That is great. I love it.
Exactly. So that was a deepening of my spiritual life at that time. I did that work for 4 years, once a week, 2 hours a week, rain, snow, heat, cold, whatever, knocking on doorbells, knocking on doors, and asking people who want to know more about the Catholic faith. So I continued to grow, privately, of course, reading scripture, reading tons of religious material, and praying and meditating and all kinds of stuff, and just kept growing and growing and growing in my faith. But that was kind of the beginning after I got out of TV. A radical departure from the bright lights of television.
I know. Well, I mean, that's why when I look at where you're at today, then you kind of started, from what I understand, is then eventually you would run for political office. So, because I remember I voted for you.
Thank you. Not enough people did, but thank you, Josh. You were with me. You were with me, brother.
Yeah, well, I wanted an independent. Yeah, you ran it. You weren't.
I did run as an independent.
Yeah.
And it was 2006. It was an unusual race because one of the state senators left in the middle of his term for some reason, and it was January. And they said, well, we've got to replace him. We'll call a special election for April. So it was like an 11-week campaign. It was really short. It wasn't like for years and everything else. So I said, well, I'll jump in there. And my big issue was pro-life. I just really wanted to. In 2006, there was a lot of embryonic stem cell research coming in through the universities and all kinds of stuff that really wasn't good about how to create babies and clone things and everything else. And I just wanted to be in the state house at Missouri to vote against that kind of stuff. So I ran as an independent. Two Democrats ran against each other. One, of course, had to run as an independent, and a Republican ran. And I thought, well, I got a pretty good shot. My name recognition is probably better than anybody else. But I really found from that experience that the power of the two parties, it was a special election. It was April. Not many people were coming out to vote, so it was a small turnout. And I learned that the Republicans and the Democrats pretty much drove all their people to the polls, sometimes literally in buses to go and vote. And the hardcore Republicans and the hardcore Democrats would support their parties, and everybody else didn't even know what was going on. They didn't even show up. So I lost. I finished fourth in the four candidate race. But I thank you for your vote, Josh. Thank you, man.
Well, there you go. Well, I was, looking for a pro-life candidate, but I love to get away from the two-party system. So
I would too. It's just terrible. It's really become so much worse since then, since 2006. People out for themselves. The politicians are so selfish and greedy and special interests backing them and everything else. It's just, it's disgusting.
do you, I mean, just thinking about that, do you see, like, and I agree with that concept, but I also think that there seems to be a more and more people who are saying what we're saying, and I think that it's pulling at least the Republican Party. It seems like it's pulling some of them more towards a more reasonable, let's say, stature or position, and getting away from some of that. There's a lot of talk of some of these younger politicians about trying to get some of that money out of there, and especially I know in Missouri, there's the Freedom Caucus has been fighting a lot of that right now.
Mm.
So, have you been involved in any of that, or have you heard about? Have you
No, I try to stay out of politics as much as I can.
gets the blood boiling?
I watch what's going on, but again, it's just so seedy. I'm trying to live my faith. I'm trying to live what God wants me to do. I don't have a lot of time to fight the political wars and everything else going on.
So, what are you doing today?
Well, I'm running an apostolate called Mater Media. Our mission statement is to make Jesus Christ more known and more loved by more people through media. So we publish books. We work with major motion picture companies. We do a marriage program. We do digital, all kinds of stuff. We're a small company, but through God's grace, we've been able to reach a lot of people. Started this 11 years ago.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's what you've been doing in the last 11 years. There's a lot of things that were encompassed in there. So how do you get in touch with the big movie and media production places?
When I was in TV, I never knew anybody in movies. And then when I got out of TV, pretty much when I started this not-for-profit, I started meeting all kinds of people from Hollywood. So obviously, with my desire to serve the Lord, I wasn't going to get involved with any company or any movie that didn't make uplifting, inspiring movies. They didn't have to be Catholic, of course, there aren't very many Catholic movies, but they had to be uplifting and inspiring and do good. So I met a number of people, a number of different movie makers. I met David Henry, who played Selena Gomez's little brother on the Wizards of Waverly Place, and he was doing a small short film at that time, and I got him on the O'Reilly Factor with my friend Bill, and so I became friends with him, and then I started to work with some people that did the movie Sound of Freedom.
Mm.
So I did a lot with Sound of Freedom, became friends with them many years ago when they did a movie in 2007 called Bella. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's a small release. They didn't get very many theaters. They won the Toronto Film Festival. It's a great pro-life movie. You can Google it. It's on all the platforms.
They had it in DVD format.
Oh, yeah.
I think I have it in my house.
Yeah. It did really well in DVD. They sold tons of DVDs. It was a great story about a waitress in New York City, pregnant outside of wedlock. And she, spoiler, she decided to have the baby, which the theaters didn't want because the culture was going the other way. So it didn't get very many theaters. It only got in 800 theaters. Didn't last long, but it did really, really well in the aftermarket. Great movie. I'd recommend it to anybody out there watching.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is that the movies, they always think that they know what people want.
Yeah.
And people want the exact opposite.
Right.
You know, like,
yes.
I think people would give up special effects for a good story.
Yes,
Something different. And they want good acting. There's a lot of, I look at the actors today, not all of them, but there's a lot of them that are they're like repeats of one another. I mean, just different color, the hair, maybe a little, but their personalities transfer. You can look back years and go, well, basically you're trying to be an Aniston or you're trying to be a, Candace or whatever. You just look at these different people and you can go back and look and go, you're trying to copycat somebody who's already been there. Just be yourself.
Yeah. It's great advice. Be yourself. Yeah. But anyway, Sound of Freedom, I got to know the guys that made Bella. They're the guys that made Sound of Freedom. I was in Napa in 2021 pitching this movie to 25 gazillionaires, trying to get them to invest in the movie. And none of them would invest. They saw the movie. We screened it for them. They said, wow, powerful movie. But, people go to movies to be entertained. And child sex trafficking is not entertaining. We just don't think people are going to go see it. We're not going to invest. So we took it to Chicago. Nobody invested. We did 4 screenings in St. Louis for wealthy people. Nobody would invest. Only reason that movie ever got to the big screen was Angel Studios. They crowdfunded it. They got 7,700 people to collectively put in $5 million, which got them into the theaters for 12 days. And Jim Caviezel championed it. He said, on the 4th of July, we want 2 million people to show up to represent the 2 million kids are being sex trafficked in the United States. And so it blew up. It did $250 million internationally and nationally. They made it for $14 million. Anybody who invested made a buku money, but not very many people did. The investors with Apple Studios did, and the movie makers. So, but that was it. It's a crazy story.
And Angel Studios. Did the Angel Studios, I know they crowdfunded, did they make some money off of that? I hope.
They made a lot of money, yeah, because they distributed it.
I was gonna say, they've been putting out a lot of good stuff. I like Angel Studios a lot. They're doing a series right now called the Wingfeather series.
I hear that's great. I don't have kids or anything, but I mean, here it's great.
It's kind of like a modern Narnia is the best way I would explain it. It's kind of fantasy for young kids. So I've been reading the books through with my kids and then watching the show as it comes out, and they're amazing. So they really are.
Parents, they love it.
Yeah. And there was something else that they did recently. Oh, they did the obviously the other series, the Chosen.
Chosen, of course.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, with Jonathan Rumi.
Yeah, that one blew up, and his career blew up.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah,
for sure.
Very, very, very. We need more Apple or Angel Studio type things, don't you agree?
We do. We're working with another movie company completely separate from that on a movie that was shot in St. Louis. You may have heard about it. It was shot in November, December. First major motion picture shot in St. Louis in 14 years. It's about a true story about a St. Louisan. His name is John O'Leary. And in 1987, he was burned over 100% of his body in a house fire. And he was given less than 0.5% chance to live. Took him to Mercy Hospital, and everybody was praying for him. And miraculously, the prayers were answered. He lived. He survived. And Jack Buck, the late, great Cardinal announcer, championed that kid. After Cardinals games at midnight, he would go to the hospital. Nobody would know it. And he'd go into the kid's room and go, "Kid, you're going to live. Kid, keep fighting. Kid, when you get out of here, we're going to have John O'Leary Day at the ballpark." And he inspired the kid to fight. So John O'Leary underwent, like, I think 16 surgeries and all kinds of skin grafts over every part of his body. He had the fingers on both hands amputated, but he survived. And Jack Buck, true to his word, had John O'Leary Day at the ballpark, and he had him down in the field. So that's the start of the movie. That's what the movie is about. But John O'Leary goes on to become a great international speaker who's spoken before 2 million people in 30 countries all over the world. He's married the most beautiful girl in St. Louis University at that time, got 4 kids, close friend of mine, great guy. So he was giving a speech in Vegas, I think, and this woman came up to him and she said, I've read your book and now I heard you speak and we're going to make a movie of your life. And John said, yeah, I've spoken for 20 years all over. Everybody always says that never happened. She says, no, we're going to make a movie of your life. So I think she wrote him a check for like $150,000, optioned his book. She says, I'm putting together a team in Hollywood. We're making a movie of your life. So she went to Hollywood, and it took some time. She was in the music business. She was a major music mogul behind the scenes who represented songwriters all over the world. And so she had some connections, and she put together this team. She got Sean McNamara to direct the movie. He directed Soul Surfer, movie about the girl who got her arm cut off by the shark. And
I've been following this whole story. I know all this. I love it. I love that people are hearing this, though, because I heard the John O'Leary story from dating my wife because she's related to him.
Really?
Yeah, they're like cousins or something like that. And
so you know the story, John O'Leary.
From like 20 years ago. And so I've kind of been loosely following his career. Yeah. And he's absolutely mega star. I don't know him personally, so I've watched his career. But yeah, I remember when I first started dating Amy, and they were like, oh, you should know about our cousin. They started telling me about this guy named John O'Leary, how he was burned, started telling me about the Jack Buck story and how it inspired their cousin and all this and that. And now he's a huge thing, and I've had friends that were extras in that movie. So yeah,
shot in St. Louis.
Absolutely.
So Sean McNamara came in as director, and they got some great people. Todd Harris, who's produced 50 movies, became on as a producer, and all kinds of people. And then they started to cast it, and they got a great cast. I mean, William H. Macy plays Jack Buck. You believe that?
That's awesome. He's going to be amazing. I can't wait to watch that.
I was on set during some of the shoots. My role became to act out scenes from the movie for prospective investors. The movie was written by Gregory Poirier, a great film writer in Hollywood. He wrote National Treasure, Book of Secrets with Nicolas Cage, and a lot of big movies. And he really did a tremendous job, Josh, on writing the story of John O'Leary. He took his book, talked to John, did all this stuff. But the thing was, the way he wrote it was hard for investors to see, especially ones in St. Louis that don't usually invest in movies. And that was because if he told that story linearly, chronologically, the kid gets burned and he goes through 16 surgeries and gets his hands cut off and all that. You'd be puking. It'd be like 45 minutes. You wouldn't be able to keep watching all this kid went through. So what he did was he started with the fire, and then he would jump forward when John was in college. And, you're going, oh, okay, that poor kid lived. There he's in college. He's not doing very well, but he's in college. And then he went back to the emergency room, and they're operating on him. And then they fast forward to, oh, he's trying to date this girl at St. Louis University. Then they went back here. But the flash forwards and flashbacks were brilliant. But when you see it on paper and you're not used to reading movie scripts and all the abbreviations and everything, the people that are trying to get invest, especially in St. Louis, going, I'm really not seeing this. So they brought me in to act out scenes in the movie. So they put a bunch of wealthy people in a room, and I'd be down there and I'd say, okay, here's what it looks like. Here's John Hunter. Now we're going to go forward there. And then I'd act out the scenes. I had a ball. And we got some people to invest in the movie and made the movie. So
that's awesome.
So it was fun. I loved it. So much fun. So then, they invited some of our investors on screen and, for the shoot. And so I was there. They made William H. Macy look just like Jack Buck. They dyed his hair white. They gave him blue contacts. They had him study Jack's voice for the broadcast. It's uncanny.
Oh,
it's going to be great. It's going to be really good. So the status is it's pretty much done. They're doing a little tweaking with some special effects. Had focus groups around the country, and showed it in Kansas City, showed it in LA, showed it in 3 other cities, just scoring very well, either very good to excellent and all that, people who see it. And we need to get a distributor for it, though. We need to get somebody who can put it into the studios. So that's the next step. But The reviews are great, and everybody's confident that it's going to be in theaters. You want a theatrical release. I mean, the streamers will take anything because they're all trying to fill 24/7. There's so many of them, but you want to get that theatrical release first to set it up and make for the biggest impact. And so we're holding out for that, and really confident through God's grace it's going to happen and affect a lot of people. It's a really beautiful, beautiful story the way it's told.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't realize you were involved in it. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, so we'll be promoting it when it comes out, of course, because we promote movies too. We raise money for movies and we promote movies.
Gotcha. So, wow. When you mentioned being in movies, I was in you had major contacts. That's amazing. Those are some really big movies and names. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
It seems like you got a passion there too for it. I mean, you're oozing right now as you're talking. You can't stop.
Yeah. 2016, we another movie company. We did a lot of promotion for a movie called Unplanned. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was a story of Abby Johnson, who left Planned Parenthood to become a pro-life advocate.
I've heard of it. I have not seen it, but I need to because I follow Abby Johnson. I like her stuff. She's
Sure.
one of the biggest pro-life advocates out on Twitter and on social media right now. So
2016. It's on all the platforms.
I think I got her book. I'm pretty sure I
Yeah.
bought her book too.
Check it out. It's a great movie.
I will. And you helped out with that one.
We raised $62,000 and we bought 6,000 tickets to opening weekend at 9 theaters in St. Louis to pack the theaters the first weekend, because in the movie business, the first weekend is very, very important, especially if you're a small movie company. You got to pack the theater so it stays around. And St. Louis wound up the #1 market in the country, not per capita, but overall, because we bought these 6,000 tickets the first 3 days of the movie. So we were deeply involved.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And the feedback, I imagine, was really good too, because that's an amazing story. I mean, her story is amazing.
I'll tell you, Josh, anyone who watches that movie with an open mind, I do not think that you can say, that's all right, but I'm pro-death, I'm pro-abortion. I don't think you can, in conscience, do it. It's that powerful.
Wow.
Great story.
That I've never understood it anyways. So the whole idea of abortion just blows my mind away.
Killing life, taking life.
Well, and the older I get, even looking at like how our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, and intentionally putting stuff like life, liberty, and life comes before liberty.
Yes.
Very intentionally place things, which then addresses not only slavery but addresses the unborn.
Yes, indeed.
And it seems like
Absolutely.
they were very intentional about how they wrote several of these things. Kind of almost, it had to be supernatural when they wrote the Constitution. I'm convinced of that more by the day because, man, I don't think could do that good of a job.
No, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yes, but the more I read it, the more, and to see how things have played out, the more intentional I see how it was written, with this idea that life becomes before liberty, liberty becomes before possessions, and then you have possession. And so it's just a very interesting how God laid those very specifically out through our Constitution. So when I look at, even from our country point of view, not even from a biblical point of view, it seems weird that we would promote something that is so anti-constitutional at our very core of who we are as Americans. And then as believers, I always say I don't think anybody can be a believer and be pro-abortion. I don't see how.
I agree.
If you're born again and God is in you, how would you not want to value life above all other things?
Yes.
You want to
Yes.
seek peace in all situations, and there are times where you can't do that, okay? And God gives that, but that's not what you seek first.
That's right.
So that's the aftermath. The thing of the Bible is more of when they strike you, then you strike back super hard, but don't you seek peace first and pursue peace. And I just don't I don't seem to this when I read the scripture see how somebody can interpret it in any other way than that God values life from
I'm with you.
conception.
I'm with you. I got 5 minutes left.
Let's wrap you up and get you back in here. So if people want to get involved with what you're doing now, where can they go?
Go to matermedia.org. That's matermedia.org. We're 501c3, not for profit. There's a ton of stuff on there. There's a short video of our history and what we're doing. We're doing a major marriage program because marriage is being attacked in this culture so much. It's from the evil one. I mean, God made us male and female. He made us to be fruitful and multiply. I mean, it's from the beginning, and that's the way it's been for 2,000 years until now. where, yeah, anything goes. You don't have to be male and female. You don't have to. You can get babies from test tubes. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can have surrogate mother. You can have anything you go. You know, the family. Yeah, we don't need families anymore. You can be a single parent. We'll give you all kinds of money. Blah 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 blah. And it's against God's creation and how God made it to be. So we're running a marriage program to help Catholic married couples. It's called the Celebrate Catholic Marriage Experience because marriage is hard. I mean, even among people of faith, marriage is hard. It's not easy. So I want to strengthen them. It's a one-night event. It starts with one-night event where we bring them all together, a night of fun and laughter. And it's a really fun format we have. And then we send them on a 7-week journey where we recommend they spend an hour a week away from the kids, away from the phones, away from distractions on a 7-week step-by-step thing to strengthen their marriages. So we're doing that in a lot of parishes. It's going extremely well, getting people out of their houses, getting them to talk about their marriages, getting them to bring them together with other married couples. And we're really excited about that. So that's one thing on the website. The movies are on there. The video is on there. We've published 19 books, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, memoirs, all kinds of stuff. I only wrote 2 of them, but we published 17 others. So there's a lot of stuff on the website, matermedia.org.
Awesome. We'll put that up. As people have been watching us, though, we'll have it up on the screen as well. And if they want to get a hold of it, they can go to the show notes and click on it. And dude, we're going to have you back. We and you could talk, I think, all day long about just our passion for the Lord and about culture. So thank you so much for being here and for your passion for the Lord. So,
Josh, I've loved every minute. Great. Congratulations for what you and Scott are doing with this program. It's great. It influences souls for Christ. It's what it's all about, brother.
Well, thank you so much. Well, we'll catch you guys next time. And Zip, we'll get you back here. So
great.
Take care, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Triple Play. Don't forget, as always, to like and subscribe and share. Get the word out. We appreciate that. Also, don't forget to support those that support us, like Resource One and Andy McCallum's team. If you have any financial planning needs, give those guys a call, 636-458-1798, no matter where you're at in life. If you're going through divorces, we've had episodes on here. They've got people who can help you prepare for that. If you're retiring, they got people who help you for that. And if you're young, you're just trying to get started, trying to figure out what's the best first step, they've got people for that. So consider Resource One, Andy McCallum and his team there, 636-458-1798. Also, Chris with CS Design, they do our intro or outro. They do the logos. They're wizards at graphic design. They're wizards with all things, I call it technology related or social media related. Give those guys a call. Chris is great, 573-436-3717. And lastly, don't forget, if you have any insurance needs, give Jeff Earhart at 314-821-5333 a call, and those guys would be glad to help you at State Farm with your insurance needs. So State Farm, Jeff Earhart's agency, 314-821-5333, or Jeff. And we appreciate your support as always, and we'll catch you next episode.
You're safe.